Safety car peels its way in towards the pit lane, and Sasha Kakad already dives for the pit lane, so all might not be well with the Audi, or he's not happy with the tyre choice. So the Audi is not going to start the race, or at least at the same time as everybody else. So 25 minutes on the clock, red lights go out, and on his own, Simon Orange will charge his way in the Orange Racing powered by JMH McLaren 720S GT3 up towards Copse Corner, treading gingerly, trying to work out where the grip is or isn't in the case of many of the drivers. Be careful if you run on those curbs as well, because the painted surface of the curb, if you're on the power, is soon going to point the car in a very different direction to you want it to be. But it is Simon Orange that leads the way, and it's Tom Fleming at the wheel of the Ferrari that's up into second place at the moment. So a brilliant start from Tom Fleming. Paul Rogers at the wheel of the number 76 McLaren has got Gilbert Yates and Seamus Jennings behind him. You can see all of the cars trying to seek out where the tarmac grips, and of course we've also got that Lotus of Jay Shepherd trying to weave his way through from the tail end of the field. For the lead of Group GTC, Dan Dazeal and Tom Fleming at the wheel of the two Ferraris that run to Ferrari Challenge specification were wheel to wheel going in towards Stowe Corner. Are we going to have a change for second and the lead of Group GTC? Yes, we do. Dan Dazeal goes through. Now, Dan was a bit of a star in the damp conditions at Alton Park last time out, and clearly he is relishing these conditions here at Silverstone at the moment. Sasha Kakad and the Audi are in the pit lane, and it does look as though work has been concluded on that car. They are going to rejoin, and for the lead of Group GTC, Tom Fleming's having none of it. He draws himself back alongside and up the inside of Dan Dazeal. So brilliant stuff from those two fighting away for the lead of Group GTC. And leading Group GTH in the early stages, I think it's the number 91 Mercedes in the hands of Ed Bridle that's leading that one, the 24/7 prepared car. Now, for the lead of the race, we no longer have Simon Orange in the lead as well, because it's the two Group GTC Ferraris that lead the way. Ed Bridle a bit too late on the brakes almost at the wheel of the Mercedes, the number 91 Mercedes. He's got behind him the 999 Porsche. That will be in the hands of Patrick Collins for this race. He's got another Porsche ahead of him, but that's the GT3 spec Porsche in the hands of the man from Northern Ireland, from Belfast, Seamus Jennings. But the two Ferraris lead the way at the moment, and are first and second, of course, in Group GTC. You can see the line that Dan Dazeal is taking through Brooklands Corner, nowhere near the apex. It's the same there as they come round through Luffield, just trying to seek out the less polished surface, and you can see at the far end of the circuit just how much the rain is falling. Dan Dazeal pressing on, lap number 2 about to be completed. He's got plenty of warmth in the tyres, the slick tyres at the moment, but if it starts to rain too much, you lose all of that temperature out of the tyres, and then all of a sudden it all starts to disappear away from you and off. And I'm afraid that is the Ram Racing number 8 Mercedes in the hands of Adam Knight that's had an off. That is coming out of Brooklands and on the run towards Luffield Corner. Now, is that car parked against the barriers, or has it brushed into the barriers is the question. Looks as though there might be a very slight amount of damage to that front left corner, but the car is hopefully far enough out of harm's way so as to be covered by localised yellows. Dan Dazeal continuing to lead the way. The car that was leading Group GTO, Paul Bailey, I think has dived for the pit lane this time through, and you can see that in third place, Simon Orange at the wheel of the McLaren is slowly getting caught by the similar McLaren in the hands of Paul Rogers. Paul, who is far more used to driving Ferraris than he is McLarens, in GT Cup for the first time this weekend. There's Paul Bailey. So clearly he's come in for, one we can only assume, a change of tyres. In Group GTH, by the look of things, we've got Phil Carter now hounding the Porsche of Seamus Jennings, whilst also being attacked by the black Mercedes that sits behind, which is in the hands of Charles Dawson. And this has certainly strung the field out in the early stages of this one. Some drivers either on a different tyre choice, or some of them feeling slightly more comfortable in the tricky conditions on slick tyres, if that's the case. And there we also see a change for position as well, as Gilbert Yates is picked off by the Group GTH Mercedes in a straight line. However, he will have the grunt down the straight and should be able to wiggle his way through. He tries it. Chris Hart desperate to try and see if he can get through and ahead of the car, but can't quite manage it. And for the lead of the race, Dan Dazeal again feeling the pressure. Tom Fleming has the run on the inside, heading up in towards Aintree. Dan Dazeal gives him enough room. The two 488 Evo spec Ferraris running nose to tail along the Wellington Straight. 20 minutes to go, so plenty of racing still to come. Conditions still deteriorating at some parts of the circuit, but up here at Brooklands, really, it looks certainly substantively drier. And if I look out of the small windows I have in the commentary box. No, it is now raining at this side of the circuit, so it's slowly blowing in, which was the forecast for this afternoon, but it has blown in at exactly the wrong time as far as these drivers are concerned, because of course the cars will have been put onto their tyres, and the choice of those tyres probably, what, a good 15-20 minutes ago when they left the pit garage to line up on the grid. And with the breeze that we've had, you can see now that, yeah, it's dark clouds all the way around Silverstone, and conditions are only going to get worse by the look of things. Now, Simon Orange is in danger of losing a further place here. Ed Bridle has gone through and ahead of him, so the car that leads Group GTH is up to third overall in the race at the moment. And also Chris Hart, now at the wheel of his Group GTH Mercedes, has been able to go through and ahead of Simon Orange. So I do wonder if some cars maybe took a different tyre choice. We'll only find out at the end of the race, but Simon Orange, who claimed a win, partnered up with Tom Roach in yesterday's pit stop race, their 5th group win in Group GT3 of the season, their 4th overall win of the year, is tumbling down through the order at the moment, and Ed Bridle looks very comfortable in these conditions. He'll be coming up to lap Andre Borodin before too much longer. Andre has also been into the pit lane for assistance to be given, and Gilbert Yates is in as well. So Top Cats Racing, their slick tyres on Gilbert Yates' car. You can see the Pirelli slicks have come off, the Pirelli wets are going on, and we can also now possibly see a change for the overall lead of Group GT3, because Paul Rogers is trying to put the former champion, double champion Simon Orange, under pressure, and the Day Glow McLaren 720S GT3, the non-Evo variant, is now fully up to date and right on terms with the Evo car that lies ahead. Easy way to tell the difference between the Evos and the non-Evo cars. There's a lot more to it than what I'm going to tell you, but it's a double winglet that you see dive plane on the front corners of the Evo car heading towards us now. Look at the car behind, it's just a single dive plane on the corners of the cars. So for the leader Group GTH, Ed Bridle is feeling the pressure here from Chris Hart, and the Morpheus Racing Mercedes is going to go through and take the place away. So that is a change for 3rd and 4th, but more importantly a change for the lead of Group GTH. Gilbert Yates makes his way back out onto the circuit, having conducted the pit stop to change the Top Cats Racing Lamborghini Huracan that runs to Super Trofeo specification, so it runs in Group GTC from its slick tyres to its wets. Everybody else still at the moment either happy with their choice or putting up with their choice of tyres, as the case may be. So Dan Dazil still leading the way. Tom Fleming still in 2nd position. Traffic to deal with for Chris Hart, who's there in 3rd place now. Weaves his way through and past Doc Bush's car and Andre Borodin, both of whom stay out of the way. Now, any pit stops that take part in this race are as quick as you can do them, really. It is the sprint race, so if you want to pit, do the work on the car, get it back out there as quickly as you can. You can't change drivers because it's a sprint race. So all those cars that came into the pit lane, it was just to get the car serviced with whatever the driver wanted, and that included, of course, this car here, the car that should have started on the front row of the grid, Sasha Kakad, but he did have a spin on that formation lap. And there, I'm afraid, there was some damage to the front corner of the number 8 car. It must have clogged the barriers in the hands of Adam Knight, the Ram Racing Mercedes being hauled out of the way. You can certainly see the apex speeds have slowed off a lot, and even then there was a twitch on acceleration from Dan Dazil at the wheel of the Ferrari, who's really struggling to get the car anchored up in towards Club Corner. The rain has now eased and has lifted off, so we're now at that stage again, whereas it's not wet and it's certainly not dry. It's that horrible greasy stage, and when you're on slick tyres that don't have that much temperature in them now, it does mean that the drivers are working overtime here to keep the car planted on the tarmac and in the right direction. Dan Dazil is doing a really good job, and he needs to, because he's still got Tom Fleming behind him. Tom, who's done lots and lots of karting, has Tom, and has been racing in the Ferrari European Championship more recently, but these two identical spec cars with their respective drivers are more than a match for each other here. 10 minutes of the race gone, 15 to go. They squeeze the accelerator as gently but as firmly as they dare, heading out of the loop and up towards Aintree, and head down the Wellington Straight for what is now the 4th time of asking. Nose to tail for the lead of the race. Tom Fleming thinks about taking a slightly narrower angle in towards Brooklands Corner, but then sweeps back to almost now take the normal racing line through that corner. So again, you know, the circuit is evolving. We've had the rain. It has eased off, and now all of a sudden the grip levels change, and lap after lap after lap, it's a journey of exploration really for these drivers. The grip that was there on one lap is now either not there because of the rain at this part of the circuit, yet the far reaches of the circuit that had the rain to start with, the grip's improving. So every lap is an education, and this time through, Tom Fleming gets up the inside of Dan Deziel heading in towards Copse Corner. Careful that you don't touch those curbs with the painted surface, and Tom Fleming picks up the lead of the race from Dan Deziel. So the order changes at the front. That also means that the order now changes yet again for the lead of Group GTC. Now the car that leads for this weekend is running in the invitation class, so it won't score any championship points. So for Dan Deziel, yes, of course they'll want the overall win for himself and the team and his father, who shares the car with him, but doesn't matter, that car has gone through. They don't lose any more championship points. And it's the same for a couple of cars which are running in the invitation class over the course of this weekend. Simon Orange is still keeping very busy. He's dropped down to 5th position now, the pole-sitting car, and is still under pressure from Paul Rogers, who is sharing the Dayglow Orange McLaren with James Wallace for this weekend. James, who we've regularly seen driving a Mercedes in GT Cup this season, but the car, the Mercedes, was racing over in Portugal last weekend, only returned to the UK, I think, on Thursday, so the team haven't had sufficient time to get the car out of the truck, prep it and get it here to Silverstone for testing on Friday. So it's a different car that he's driving for this weekend to keep up his championship charge. And his new teammate for this weekend, Paul Rogers, acquitting himself beautifully in a car that's unfamiliar to him, a team that's unfamiliar to him, and conditions at the moment which are fairly unfamiliar to him, because he hasn't done that many laps around Silverstone in conditions like this weekend. So again, gentle on the throttle as they dare. They, I'm sure, will have tweaked. You can see Simon Orange there again, the tail end of the car just kicking away very, very slightly. They'll be continually just tweaking the settings for traction control and ABS to make sure that it's doing what they want it to do in the conditions. And of course, as those conditions change again, the midway round the lap, they might tweak it to a different setting, the ABS and traction control, just to try and get the car out the corner as much as possible without too much interruption of the electrical systems, but equally as much, that gives you that safety buffer, doesn't it? Simon Orange just running a little bit wide there at that part of the circuit. So the two McLarens fighting over 5th and 6th. As for the Audi of Sasha Kakad, well, that car is running in 12th position now at this stage. You can see from this section of the circuit just the visibility on the camera. So very wet round through Village and up towards the loop, and more spray now starting to appear on the start-finish line. So conditions still deteriorating out there, and drivers doing, I've got to say, a fantastic job at the moment of those that are still on slicks, braving it out and trying to stick with it. They'll probably now lose more time than they would coming into the pits than they would do just trying to stay out there. But there comes a point where you just can't drive around on the slicks anymore. You just have zero grip. It's like driving on ice. So if the weather conditions continue to close in, it may well be that some of those that are doing a good job and braving it out are left with no choice. They will have to come in. We know that Sasha Kakad has come in, so that was on the formation lap, the end of it, where he had a quick spin, wasn't caught by our cameras, but as he goes over the start-finish line now that he's on a tyre choice that is right as far as he's concerned for these conditions, he's starting to make progress and has set the fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes 19.178. He's just done a 2 minute 23. That is still, at 2 minute 23, about 4 seconds quicker than the race leaders are doing at the moment. And a 2 minute 23 is about 13 seconds quicker than Simon Orange is doing in the McLaren at this stage, which leads Group GT3. So that's the difference between a car on wets in GT3 and a car on slicks at the moment, 13 seconds. Gilbert Yates has switched onto his wet tyres, although I do gather there might be a pit lane penalty for him for speeding as he came in to change onto those wet tyres. So the Top Cats Racing Lamborghini will have to make a long trip down the Silverstone pit lane, and I'm afraid that Paul Rogers has had a spin. That's up at Stowe Corner at the exit of it, where the 76 McLaren, prepared by Team 76, has had a spin. So that's let Simon Orange go on his own now in the Orange Racing powered by JMH McLaren. but for Paul Rogers, that McLaren is still stuck on the outside of Stowe Corner at the moment. You can see the heat haze in the background. A little bit of heat soak preventing the engine probably from starting. He finally gets it fired up, but that is a load of time lost. No damage to the car at all that I can see, but lots and lots of time given up. And might Paul now decide that maybe in these deteriorating conditions, having made a mistake and lost a raft of time, yes, 10 minutes to go, but is it better now to pop the car onto some wet tyres and see how he gets on? So this is Chris Murphy. We heard from Chris Murphy earlier on. He is currently lying second in Group GTO, circulating 14th overall at the wheel of the BMW E46 M3. A car which he admitted to Amber Jones is a bit outgunned in Group GTO. It's not really in the correct group, but he's just out for fun and to enjoy himself, and he's doing a good job at the moment. Keeping it on the tarmac, utilising all of that experience. He's a former champion in GT Cup, securing that championship in Group GTH in an Aston Martin with Adam Hadfield some years ago. And as ever with Chris, just making sure that he keeps it consistent, keeps it steady, and doesn't overdrive the car in what are tricky conditions. Now, since losing the lead of the race, Dan de Ziel has fallen away quite substantively from Tom Fleming. Tom Fleming has now opened up an 8-second gap between himself and the cars behind. Here he is now coming through Copse Corner, but again that's the difference between a Group GTC Lamborghini on wet tyres and a Group GTC Ferrari on slicks. Tom Owings' last lap, 2 minutes 27.5. How is the Top Cats Lamborghini getting on? Well, it is on an out lap, of course, because it has just conducted that drive-through penalty. But its best lap is a 2:23.9, so that's about 4 seconds quicker than the race leader is doing at the moment. So Ferrari, from the Group GTH Mercedes of Chris Hart that's there in third. Ed Bridle in his Group GTH Mercedes is fourth. Simon Orange is fifth in the leading Group GT3 car. And now Sasha Kakad is in sixth position and has done a 2 minutes 22.1, 15 seconds quicker than Simon Orange, and he was only 2 seconds down the road. So despite the Audi pitting at the end of the formation lap, it is now highly likely to pick up the lead in Group GT3 over the course of this lap. Chris Hart running in third position, leading Group GTH at the wheel of the Morpheus Racing Mercedes. It's been a long time, I think, if ever, that we've seen a car in Group GTH finish on the overall podium. I'll have to have a look back through some notes to find that one out. We've certainly not had it this year. We've not even had a Group GTH car inside the top 6 all season. We have had a few strange races where tyre choice has played a pivotal role, and I think one of those was here at Silverstone, if not last year, then the year before. But for this car here, brilliant decision by the team, Sasha Kakad, based on the radio traffic between them, to bring that car in rather than start it on the front row of the grid. Big decision for the driver to say, no, I'm not happy with the conditions. Yes, it's the formation lap. Yes, we're scheduled to start on the front row of the grid, but let's bring the car in. Let's change the tyres on it. We'll start the race at the very back, and delayed quite substantively, but it has worked because Sasha Kakad now is up into fifth place. He's got himself ahead of Simon Orange on this lap and is now leading Group GT3 and is at the moment lapping 6 to maybe 9 seconds quicker than all the other cars ahead of him. So from fourth, third, second, first, that's the kind of lap time difference that this Audi is now doing compared to the Group GTH cars ahead of him, the 2 Mercedes, and the 2 Group GTC Ferraris, which are still first and second in the hands of Tom Fleming and Dan de Ziel. Now, can he close that gap? What's he got? He's got 25 seconds to close up just to catch the next car. But of course, he's in a GT3 car. The next car he's trying to catch is a car that's homologated to GT4 regulations and therefore runs in Group GTH. So into the braking area, through the Vale and into Club. Sasha Kakad has just gone purple through the first sector. And even through the first sector, this just gives you an idea, through the first sector of this lap, so the first 45 seconds of it, 3 seconds quicker than the next car ahead of him. A full second and a half, nearly a second and 3/4 quicker than the race leader. So Sasha Kakad is working hard behind the wheel to see if they can finish right at the sharp end of this one. Now, even if they gain any more positions on track, it's not going to affect the championship points that the Audi would walk away with because they are leading the group. But for the team, which is J&S Racing, they will want to see if they can scoop up another win. They've already had 3 overall wins, including the very shortened race at Alton Park that we had, which involved Rich Mason's incident that we've talked about a few times over the course of this weekend. But this will be a brilliant win to do it from what in reality was a pit lane start, wasn't it, rather than a front row start. 5 minutes in which to do it. Again, 5 seconds quicker than the next car through the middle sector of the lap. So it is surely going to catch right up towards Ed Bridle before too much longer. Now, it's not fair to compare the two almost, because Ed is on slicks in a GTH car and this car's on wets in a GT3 car. But it just goes to show the difference between being on the right tyre at the right time. And as Sasha Kakad goes through, that lap time was 10 seconds quicker than the car ahead. So the gap that was 25 seconds is down to 14 now. So by the end of this lap, Sasha Kakad's not going to be that far away from gaining another position. However, there's now only 4 minutes remaining on the clock, which is not a lot of time. So if he can catch Ed Bridle and get through, which I think is a given, then the next car would be Chris Hart, who is in 3rd position overall at the wheel of the Morpheus Racing Mercedes, and that car's another 5 seconds up the road after Ed Bridle. So Sasha Kakad has got to keep pushing here and not put a wheel wrong, and for the moment the only wheel he put wrong was on the formation lap, we gather. More traffic to deal with though. That will be Chris Murphy's BMW. Should be able to ease his way through and past in towards the braking area for Club. Chris stays out of the way, sees the Audi coming. Jay Shepherd at the wheel of the National Motorsport Academy Lotus is the next car then that needs dealing with by Sasha Kakad. So this will just slow the pace slightly of the Audi as it picks its way through the traffic. Still with the windscreen wiper on, the lights on, a flash of the lights as well to let Jay Shepherd know. Dan Dazeal in 2nd place. He's getting caught actually by Chris Hart. Dan Dazeal's last lap time in the Ferrari, 2 minutes 30.8. Chris Hart just set the best lap that the Merc has done so far in 3rd place, 2 minutes 27.3. So 3.5 seconds quicker. The gap between 2nd and 3rd, it was 5.3 seconds. It's going to be nothing like that by the end of this lap. So 2 minutes and 45 to go. Tom Fleming's over the start-finish line, so he's on to his penultimate lap of the race this time through. Dan Dazeal desperate to try and hang on to 2nd. Might we have a Group GTH car, not just on the overall podium in 3rd, but could we have one in 2nd place? Well, we're going to find out over the course of the next couple of laps. The Ferrari in a straight line will have way more power than the Mercedes, but through the twiddly parts, that's where Chris Hart has the confidence and has the car underneath him. This car here is 4th, which is Ed Bridle, so that's the car that's 2nd in Group GTH, shared by David Franklin come the pit stop race later on this afternoon. And then we also need to keep an eye on what's going on further down through the order, because Simon Orange is still struggling in the number 67 McLaren. He might get overtaken by Patrick Collins in the sister car from Orange Racing powered by JMH, because the number 999 Porsche is slowly catching the car ahead. Flash of lights for Chris Hart. He's hugely keen to get through and past Dan Dazeal. He's not going to do it in a straight line because the Ferrari will have more grunt as they head down the Hangar Straight and up towards Stowe. But in towards the more technical section, this is where it's really going to favour the Mercedes. So downhill in towards the likes of the Vale and Club and then through the arena section, that might give the Mercedes an opportunity. Car that leads is way up the road. Tom Fleming, though, runs in the invitation class. Still a bit of a wiggle as he turned his way through Farm Curve there, so the driver's still struggling with adhesion. Tom Fleming has done a good job here of sticking with the tyre choice at the beginning and building an advantage, and that's an off, and that is into the barriers, by the look of things, the Mercedes. And it's not the only car that's had the off, because we can see that the McLaren has got damage to the front left-hand corner of it, and that is Paul Rogers in the 76 car. So both of those must have had a coming together somewhere, and I think that was John Curry rather than Chris Hart in the second of the two Morpheus Racing Mercs. So 40 seconds to go. Our race leader Tom Fleming, number 26 in the Ferrari, still with the wipers going, about to head on to the final lap of the race in what has been tricky conditions. The rain that was falling has now largely departed. You can still see there's a lot of grey in the skies though over Silverstone. There is Chris Hart now in second place. He's got himself ahead of Dan de Ziel's Ferrari. That was reasonably inevitable through that middle section of the race, the middle sector of it, the technical section. In a straight line, the Ferrari will come back towards the Mercedes, but I think Chris Hart has done enough work now to probably be able to hang on to that position, providing he doesn't make a mistake. Ferrari will close as they come down the national pit straight, up towards Copse Corner. And there you can see in the background, there is Sasha Kakad now, who has gone through and ahead of Ed Bridle. So he's caught Ed Bridle, so up into fourth place for the Audi that stopped on the very first lap of this race. In fact, the end of the formation lap in reality, wasn't it, before the race even got underway, to change the tyres on the car. And that at the moment has been the right decision, because even with the overtake that time through, Sasha Kakad was 9 seconds quicker than the Dan de Ziel Ferrari, and was 7 seconds quicker than Chris Hart's Mercedes, and was 3 seconds quicker than Tom Fleming, the race leader. So Sasha Kakad might just come up a little bit short on an overall podium, but having ideally wanted to start from the outside of the front row of the grid, making the decision to pit for tyres, which means you start right at the back and delayed, back to fourth, and winning the groups and maximum championship points, is not a bad outcome, I would say. Waved yellow flags in towards the Braking Area 4 club because of the stricken Mercedes and McLaren that one would imagine got themselves together into the braking area on the damp circuit. But for Sasha Kakad, how much has he gained over the cars ahead? About another 2 seconds through the first sector of the lap. The middle sector of this lap is the longest sector. Fastest lap of the race has just been popped in by Gilbert Yates on the wet shod. Fastest middle sector rather has just been popped in by Gilbert Yates on the wet shod Lamborghini, and also a purple first sector for Andre Borodin on his wet shod car. So conditions, certainly at some parts of the circuit, still deteriorating. But Sasha Kakad here is, I think, going to ease his way through. We're going to get a win for Tom Fleming as he's about to head out very shortly of the final corner. Who's going to finish in second and third? Well, I think Dan de Ziel is going to miss out on a podium because Sasha Kakad is going to pick his pocket. Through comes Tom Fleming. He will claim the win in round 17 of the 2023 GT Cup Championship in very changeable and tricky conditions here. Sasha Kakad is up the inside of Dan de Ziel, so that's going to be up to what will be third place overall. Is he going to have the grunt in a straight line to catch the Mercedes of Chris Hart that lies ahead? He's going to push towards the checkered flag, but I think Chris Hart is just going to have enough in hand, so it's going to be a Group GTH Mercedes that's going to finish second overall in this race. Through comes Chris Hart now, second overall. That's a great result for the Morpheus Racing team. They might be 25 seconds off the lead, but to get a GTH car up to second spot overall in the race is brilliant stuff from them. Sasha Kakad, hats off for the decision and the team's work to get that car serviced and out with the change of tyres to finish third overall. Dan de Ziel finishes in fourth with Ed Bridle in fifth, and sixth place should go the way of Simon Orange, one would have thought. Fastest lap of the race, Andre Borodin at the moment, 2 minutes 19.098 for the number 24 car. That will more than please him and the Greystone team. Rich Mason and I were chatting over yesterday and saying that Andre has this year just seems to have come on more and more and more and more. And at the beginning of this year, I saw Andre racing at Alton Park in similar conditions, and you could just tell he didn't like it. It didn't gel. Whereas this here, fastest lap of the race with a change of tyre to allow him to cope with the conditions. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. And hopefully we'll hang on to that fastest lap of the race because there's still a few of the cars to take the checkered flag. But for Tom Fleming, he'll be as pleased as punch with that one. And as he makes his way around the circuit, they might not be scoring championship points this weekend because they run in the invitation class, but that's the way to make your mark in your debut weekend of GT Cup racing. He will come through to claim the overall win. The car that is behind him on this slowdown lap, the black and Dayglow yellow Lamborghini, which is Paul Bailey, will be the winner of Group GTO, so that won't do their championship standings any harm at all. And we actually had 3 different group winners inside the top 3. Group GTC car won the race, Group GTH was second, Group GT3 was third. And a good drive also, I would say, for that car there, number 2, which is Gilbert Yates. Might have finished 8th overall in the race and 4th in Group GTC, but again, good decision to bring the car in when the driver wasn't happy, change the tyres over from the slicks to the wets. Let's confirm the results then for you for what was an unusual round 17 of the 2023 GT Cup Championship here at Silverstone. And have we had everybody through? Yes, we have. as Tom Fleming heads in towards the pit lane area. Tom Fleming claims the win from Chris Hart in second place. So Tom Fleming claims Group GTC, Chris Hart claims Group GTH, and in third, Sasha Kakad claims Group GT3. Dan de Ziel pipped and just missed out on a podium spot on the final lap of the race. Finishes in fourth place with Ed Bridle there in fifth place. And Simon Orange started from pole but struggled understandably in the conditions. He finished in sixth place. Patrick Collins was there in seventh place. Gilbert Yates was in eighth place. Ninth place goes away of Seamus Jennings. And Phil Carter finishes in 10th position. And then as we move outside of the top 10, it is going to be Charles Dawson in 11th. Paul Bailey wins Group GTO and finishes in 12th place. And in 13th place, that's Andre Borodin, who did set the fastest lap of the race. Doc Shepherd was in 14th, ahead of Chris Murphy. Jay Shepherd was 14th, ahead of Chris Murphy, who was 15th. Doc Bush finishes in 16th place. And then, unfortunately, we saw the incident that befell John Curry and Paul Rogers, who came together in their McLaren and their Mercedes. And we also saw into the barriers and retirement early on for Adam Knight in the Ram Racing Mercedes. Hopefully those three cars will all be able to be repaired for later on, because of course we do have another GT Cup Championship race coming up just after 4 o'clock this afternoon.